so much for being here this morning. Okay.
Pleasure.
What was the inspiration for this novel?
I was sitting at the Faulkner House bookstore in the French Quarter many years ago and found these two words, Casket Girls, in a book about something completely different.
Okay.
And was completely fascinated and went on a deep dive research for a few years to find out about the real history of the Casket Girls. And then I fictionalized some characters and wrote a story of nuns, hookers, pirates, and smugglers in French colonial New Orleans.
Ooh, that sounds fun. So it's a fictional novel, but there are some things, it's a historical fiction, some things based in history?
It's historical fiction, the occurrences and the political landscape, the architecture, the food, everything is very well researched, if I may say so. And some of the characters are not just based on real people, some of them are real people.
Interesting. You've changed the names?
Not necessarily, because it's one of them is the Ursuline nun, Marie-Madeleine Hachard, known as Sister Stanislaus, and she really existed. She wrote a book about her travels.
Wow. Okay. So what are some things that we'll recognize in there, or will we recognize a lot of things throughout the novel being local New Orleanians?
I think you'll recognize a lot of things, especially the old French Quarter.
Oh.
You know, the names might sound very French because that was the period.
Sure.
And are spelled the old way, but everybody will recognize that. And of course, you know, a lot of other things like voodoo and Catholicism and all of that stuff, good stuff.
All that stuff is woven into it. What is your connection to New Orleans? Because I know you were sitting there in the bookstore, you saw these two words, and that's kind of how you got the idea for the book. But what's your connection to New Orleans?
I'm from Vienna, Austria, and funny enough, I got a book when I was 8 years old about ghost stories in New Orleans, and I was so fascinated then that I always felt like I'd lived here in another life. And when I moved to the United States, I've always wanted to live here, but my job kept me in Los Angeles and Hollywood. So I then came here as much as I could, and finally, a few years ago, I completely moved here, and I couldn't be happier.
Oh my goodness, that is a wild story, all the way from Austria to LA, but your heart was always in New Orleans. That really makes me smile. I'm so glad that you finally moved here for good. You've written this book to kind of give even us locals maybe a little more historical context and knowledge to the place that we're living. But give us a little quick summary of the book, if you will.
Well, the Casket Girls, the real history is that they were brought over by the French government because there were only soldiers here, only men, and they needed wives. So they were actually shipped over here, and not the best girls from the best families came over, because who at this point wanted to take this long voyage to New Orleans from Europe, and then, you know, in a swamp colony, let's face it. So they grabbed women out of prisons and orphanages and off the street, and some scandalous aristocrat slipped in there too that the family wanted to get rid of. She's one of my characters.
Ooh.
And other people, all the women in my book, it's a story about survival, really. What women can do and how far they will go and how much they will have to overcome and do overcome in a lot of instances. And then just, you know, there are pirates and smugglers and all of that good stuff.
It sounds like a really fun book. I love that you've gone through the lengths of exploring our local history to learn more about it and include it in this book. So if you are looking for a last-minute gift for a book lover in your life or for yourself, I know I've been buying books for myself here and there to shove into my stocking. If you're looking for something, Casket Girls, written by a now local author living here in New Orleans, and with all the historical context, it's going to be a great book for you to check out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here this morning. Well, hey, stick around.